Wow. Hello everyone. I am just about to taste the 2023 harvest from Finca El Suelo. And if you don't know what Finca El Suelo is, where have you been? I'm kidding. Finca El Suelo is my own coffee farm in Colombia that I purchased in 2015. It's 7 hectares of land. And the first years we actually planted a lot of coffee there. I think I planted 4,500 trees the first year. And because I'm not a farmer, I live in Norway. My farm is in Colombia. All of those trees are more or less gone. And it's because of drought, because of bad farming techniques and so on. We've been replanting a lot since then. And today we have around 100 trees that are in full production. And then we have another 350 trees that are producing for the first time in 2024, so as we speak. And we have a few geisha trees, but they're not really producing. So if you want to kind of follow the progression of this farm, I highly recommend going to our Instagram, Finca El Suelo. We'll put a link below. And also we made some videos previously about the farm, some updates, and I will make sure to make an update this year as well, so that you can see the progression on the farm. The whole idea with the farm, actually in the beginning, was to kind of experiment a little bit to see if we could increase the quality of the coffee and take more risk than I'm willing to ask a farmer to do. Because remember, a normal coffee farmer, it's their livelihood, so you don't want to kind of risk their entire economy based on some crazy ideas you have. So when I purchased the land, that was kind of the initial idea, but then I got into soil biology. I studied with Elaine Ingham. She has online courses on soil biology and biological farming practices. So I was completely sold after I took those classes. So today the goal of the farm is actually to prove that we can produce more and higher quality coffees by not using any pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, any mineral fertilizer. So we only produce compost on the farm that we use both as a spray and also as a solid compost to inoculate microorganisms into the soil. So we're trying to kind of get the soil back to life, because when you have healthy living soils, that means the plant will have a good time and produce higher quality, more coffee. I have to prove that it works first. I know that it works because I've seen other farms do it. But I have to kind of figure out how to do it on my farm, and being a lazy farmer as I am, because I live in Norway, I only go to Colombia a couple of times a year to make compost, to make sure we have some progression. And then Elias, who is my neighbor, Finca Tamana, you might know, I stay on Elias's farm when I'm there, but I work on my own farm, which is like a 5-minute walk. It's just up a small hill. So Elias, when I'm not there, he will send me some photos from time to time and recommend me maybe, okay, this week we should cut the weeds. We will cut them with the machine. And sometimes I have like a plan for the farm, so I will say to Elias, okay, next week can you please put on some compost or some chicken manure or something like that. Or he also helps me pick the coffee, of course, because I'm not there doing the harvest most of the time. So he has 2 workers who are dedicated to picking the coffee on my farm. They're very, very nice people. They do an excellent job. So they will pick, they're small quantities, so it's like a couple of buckets maybe. They process the coffee with a small hand crank depulper machine. We ferment the coffee in buckets, we clean them well, and then we dry the coffee on raised beds. The coffee was stored in GrainPro. And this coffee that we're tasting today was actually the first proper export we did. That was not in the suitcase on my plane. This was actually shipped in a box with an invoice and everything, as a normal coffee producer would do. So it's the first time we exported the 24 kilos in a vacuum packed box. And then I had some additional kilos in my suitcase from the later harvest, which was in November. So all in all, we roasted 30 kilos of this coffee, or we are going to roast 30 kilos of this coffee. And we will be selling it very, very soon for some people. So I'm tasting it today. I haven't actually tasted this coffee in a few months. I've let it rest for a while, because I do find that when this coffee is very fresh, it's not very expressive. And by that I mean that it tastes a little bit green, and I know that this coffee is quite floral and quite citric, has some stone fruit flavor. And the reason why I know that is because it's Ethiopian cultivars, and I've tasted this coffee many times and over time. So I do find that in the beginning, like right after harvest, it tastes a little green and closed. It's not as kind of floral and fruity as it can be. So we've let this coffee rest for quite a while. I think it arrived Norway in October, so now it's April already, and we are going to ship to sell it in April. And I haven't tasted it in a few months, so I'm very, very excited. And this is going to be the first tasting actually since December. All right, let me get a cup. And that's because the coffees are still a little bit hot, and I've gotten so used to the kind of COVID style of cupping where we don't use the spoon anymore, so I kind of prefer to do that, especially when I do tasting like this, because if you do the same at home, it's a much more familiar kind of ritual. So you don't have to kind of spend too much energy on how to do it with the spoon and everything. So what we do is to put a little bit of coffee into the cup, and then we drink from the cup. Still a little bit hot, but we'll wait, give it another minute, I think. If you don't know how to set up a cupping, I have a tutorial on YouTube, you can check that out. It's always nice to have a coffee to compare with. So today, I thought it would be wise to compare it with a very traditional coffee from Colombia. It's a Caturra cultivar from Finca Tamana, which is my next door neighbor. So these trees are planted maybe 200 meters apart. One on Elias's farm and one on my farm. And they are two different cultivars. The Caturra from Finca Tamana is quite fruity. It has this kind of grape-like acidity, a little bit of citrus flavors, a little bit of a little slight kind of subtle berry flavors, and it's quite delicate and high acidity. The Ethiopian varieties normally has more floral, kind of more pronounced citric and stone fruit flavors. So that's what we can expect, I think. But they are planted very, very close to each other, and that's why I use it as a comparison, so you can actually see the real quality of the coffee. Okay, let's get started. Yeah, the Tamana Caturra, very classic Colombian flavors, I would say. The quality this year has been fantastic, so I'm really happy about this coffee. Super fruity, or not like super fruity. It's not like a Kenyan fruit, but compared to like Castillo or average Castillo in Colombia, which can be a little bit more herbal, this is more like a tea-like and fruity, subtle berry flavors, and has a very kind of nice, slick, oily flavor, or oily texture that is kind of smooth in the mouth. Yeah, super kind of elegant and smooth. So very kind of typical Colombian coffee from Huila, I would say. And I was scoring this coffee maybe, I think around 86 points when I bought it. And I think I would place it in that category still, 86 to 86 and a half maybe. We'll wait a little bit to see if I'll give that extra half point, but let's put it 86 for now. Of course, that's just a number that I put on, but normally I use a form, and when you add all the scores up, you judge acidity, you judge flavor intensity, you judge the mouthfeel, the aftertaste. When you add all those scores up, you come to a score that is normally between, the coffees we buy normally between 84, 85 to 91, 92. You never get to 100 because that would be like the perfect cup. So yeah, I'm kind of used to scoring, giving a score, and this would fall in a category for me that 86 means for me that it could potentially be in the Cup of Excellence. Maybe not on the top 10, but it could potentially be among the top 20 coffees in Cup of Excellence, because it does have a super clean texture. It does have some character to it, some fruit flavors. It's really sweet, smooth. So it's a coffee of very, very good quality, I would say. Let's taste the one from El Suelo, and bear in mind this is my own coffee, so I will probably give it a couple of extra points because of that. I can definitely taste the blood, sweat and tears that's gone into making this coffee. Wow. It's actually opened up a lot since the last time I tasted it. Really, really nice. It's very delicate, like tea, green tea in that kind of texture, or even white tea. It has stone fruit flavor for sure. Like nectarines, very fresh, very bright and acidic. Also floral flavors, but not the kind of pungent jasmine thing that you can get in some geisha. It's more like a honey. Sometimes when you eat coffee flowers, it's more like a nectar flavor, I call it. It's kind of a mix between green and slight citric. Super delicate. Very, very nice. I'll probably give it like 98 points. No, I'm kidding. Maybe at the moment when it's hot, maybe I'll land on like 87, 88. Yeah, around there. Let's see when they cool down. Normally these coffees, when they cool down, they tend to give you more sweetness and more intensity of flavor. So that's why normally when I score coffees, you go through the coffees a couple of times from when it's hot till it cools down before you kind of give the final score. And sometimes you get like, oh, when it cools down, it totally falls apart. It's too weak or something. Or you can get more of astringent or even bitter flavors that you don't enjoy. All right, so let's give it a break and I'll tell a little bit more about the farm and the progression this year. This was harvested in mainly between April and July last year in 2023. And also a small part of it was harvested in November when I was there actually. And that's just because in Colombia, or at least in our area, we have like 2 harvests. We have the main harvest between April and August. And then we have like a small mitaka harvest, which is normally November, December. And the quantities are really, really small. This coffee comes from, I have 110 trees planted in a small area. They are 2.5 meters apart. And there is a little bit of shade growing there, but it's still not enough to give shade to all the trees. So there's a few trees that are in shade and they are super green and producing well. And there's quite a lot of trees that are in full sun. They are not so green, but they are still producing quite well. And it's Ethiopian cultivars. So that means the trees are quite tall and yeah, they're producing pretty well. When you eat the cherry, it tastes like, there are some different trees there. So some of them taste like super ripe fruit like papaya and other ones just taste like sweet kind of sugar water. So I think there is a mix between cultivars in that mix, but all together, when you harvest them together, you get this super fruity and floral coffee. So we planted these trees, I think, in the field. We planted them in 2019, I think that was the year. And what I did was to dig really, really big holes in the ground, 1 meter wide, 60 centimeter the other way, and then I think 60 centimeter down, or as far as we could go, because you come to a point where it's just very, very compact clay. So you struggle to dig any further. And this technique I learned in Kenya, and it's because they dig these huge holes to make sure that the roots develop faster on the tree. And in the hole we then put compost, we put weeds, we put wood chips and mixed it with soil. So you kind of make a compost mix in the hole. And then after a while, I think we waited 2 or 3 months, we planted a tree in the middle of the hole. And those trees grew really, really fast. And they started producing after 2 years, which is quite fast, but very small amounts, of course. And then every year we've been harvesting slightly more. So this is a small square in the corner of the farm, but 110 trees. It's pretty easy to manage this part because they're quite well kind of lined up, and it's a small area. So it's not a lot of trees, of course. So I expect maybe next year, or this in 2024, maybe we can produce a full bag of coffee from these trees. Maybe after we stump the trees and wait for them to regrow, maybe we can produce maybe 2 bags because trees tend to be more productive after they're stumped. So I'm not expecting a whole lot of coffee from this place. But in 24 we have another 350 trees that are now they were in flower in November, so they're going to produce a little bit more. So maybe 2024, maybe we can produce a full bag altogether. Really interesting. Also Ethiopian cultivars. Okay, let's taste another time. Tamana Caturra. And I'm just having this on the table as a reference. I just find it easier to describe flavor when you have two coffees side by side. And yeah, I know that you have some carryover effect from one to the other. So for instance, if I had a Robusta here, the Finca El Suelo coffee would taste much more fruity. But I feel like this is a good comparison because it's coffee from the neighboring farm, and then you can really see the difference in quality. Wow. Yeah, the Tamana Caturra is also, as it cools, you get this kind of caramel flavor. With the fruit, it's a little herbal, fruity, and caramel. Typical Tamana flavor, I would say. Quite high acidity, super sweet, smooth. Definitely an 86-point coffee. Might even give it 86.5. That texture and the aftertaste, really good. I'll give it 86.5, just to be nice. Makes Elias happy. And let's taste the El Suelo coffee. Super good. Ooh. The flavors are much more intense as it cools. Get much more of that stone fruit and also a little bit of like honey flavor. Really good. Yeah, very pronounced, very delicate coffee, but very pronounced flavors of stone fruit, honey, and flowers. Super nice. I think also the texture is much better. It's very, very clean and smooth. I mean, it's easy to process small amounts because you can take very good care of it. So, of course, it's a very clean coffee. Yeah, I think for me this would be definitely 88-point coffee because it's really pronounced. What I kind of maybe miss is even more intensity, and maybe this coffee doesn't have that, but I think it could get more intense in some years. I think so. I hope so. I would say that maybe because we have rested the coffee a little bit longer now than we did last time we sold it, it's more open and more pronounced. It's not as green as last time. So it's more fruity for sure. And I think also the quality is a little bit higher. And that might also just be because we have more coffee, and it's easier to process when you have more coffee. It's easier to do more selection, of course, and also the fermentation is easier. The less coffee you have, the more difficult it is to ferment because you don't have like a big mass and momentum. So maybe that's why it's tasting a little bit better this year. Really nice. The Tamana as well, super nice. All right, so let's get down to business. We are actually selling this coffee in April. We're gonna take pre-orders and then we're gonna roast the coffee. And then if you are a subscriber to Tim's Choice, you get a chance to purchase the coffee first, because we are going to send out a newsletter. You can click the link in the newsletter, and then we are selling, I think, 100-gram bags just to make sure that more people can get some. And it's first come, first serve, so when it's sold out, it's sold out. And we're going to limit it to 1 bag per person, just to be a little bit fair to everyone. So not everyone, but more people get the chance to buy it. So if you want to try this coffee from this year's harvest, make sure to act fast, and we'll try to be as efficient as possible with shipping. I highly recommend maybe choosing DHL if you're outside of Norway, because that guarantees the coffee will arrive within a few days, and it also guarantees the coffee will arrive. Sometimes there might be some problem with the normal mail, so we do on occasion get people who will never receive their coffee and we have to reship or figure it out, just so you know. So that's it for the 2024 tasting of Finca El Suelo, so the 2023 harvest actually. I hope you will enjoy the coffee if you get the chance to taste it. We will also actually have a little sale in our store, and that will be announced on our social medias.